OCO. My name is Martha Berry. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and I'm a Cherokee National Treasure, and we're going to talk about how to do traditional Cherokee beadwork today. This is beadwork that was done between about the late 1700s up to the removal in 1830. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the materials that you're going to need. The first thing that you will need is an embroidery hoop. This is just a standard 12-inch embroidery hoop. It's made of wood with a little brass peg, and it makes it a really convenient, easy way to do your work and to take your work with you. The next thing you're going to need is muslin. This is 100% cotton muslin. It's inexpensive. It's thin enough that you can see through it enough that you can actually trace a design onto the muslin. And so you don't have to draw on the fabric that is going to show at the end of the piece. You can just draw on the muslin and then sew through that. And the next thing you're going to need is the cloth that you're going to make the beadwork on. To be authentic, to use authentic materials like I do, you're going to need Stroud cloth. It's a 100% wool, very thick, heavy wool Stroud. And if you can't get genuine Stroud cloth, you can use a very thick, heavy wool broadcloth, but it should be 100% wool, and it should be nice and heavy and thick. To be period authentic with your materials, you're going to do southeastern beadwork from the southeast. You need to either use dark navy blue or scarlet. There were other colors available in that time period, but the only colors available to the tribes of the Southeast were either the dark navy blue or the scarlet. So to be period authentic in your materials, you can only use one of those two colors. Next, you're going to need thread, and you're always going to use the color of thread, the same color of thread as the background fabric. So if I'm using the dark navy blue background fabric, I'm going to be using dark navy blue thread. And if I'm going to be using the scarlet background fabric, I'm going to be using the scarlet thread. So you've got your hoop and your muslin, the cloth that you're going to bead on, and then you've got thread that matches that cloth. The next thing you need is beeswax. This is just an ounce cake of beeswax. You can get it in any fabric store or quilting shop. Quilters use it, beaders use it. You put it on your thread because it makes your thread a little stiffer. It weatherizes it a little bit, but mostly it keeps it from knotting. So you don't have to stop all the time and untangle a knot in your thread. That's probably the most important thing you're going to use is the beeswax to wax the thread. And then you're going to need needles. Now, the first technique that we're going to do is called two-needle applique. So guess how many needles you're going to need? You're going to need 2. So I have 2 here. The first one is just a regular hand sewing needle like you would use to sew on a button or to mend a hem in a skirt or something like that. It's just a standard, what they call a sharps needle. They're easy to thread, they're easy to use, they're easy to find. The other needle is a beading needle. This is the needle that's going to go through the beads. So you need, on a beading needle, it's longer and thinner, obviously, because it has to go through the hole in the bead. And when you buy a beading needle, you have to know what size bead you're going to use, because beading needles are sized according to the size of bead. And if you buy a beading needle that's too big, it won't pass through the hole in the beads. So if you're going to use a size 12 bead, you need a size 12 beading needle. If you're going to use bigger beads than that, you can use a bigger needle. The bigger the needle, the easier it is to thread. But you just have to be sure that you can pull the threaded needle through the hole in the beads. And finally, the best part of all is the beads. These are much larger than I normally use, but I'm using materials today that will make it easy for you to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so in order to teach you how to do the various stitches. So those are the materials that you're going to use. And the first thing you're going to do is stretch a piece of muslin, one layer of muslin, over your embroidery hoop. You tighten the hoop back up, and then you're going to trim around the edge. I use pinking shears so it won't ravel. And you just want about 1.5 or 2 inches on the edge of your embroidery hoop, so you don't want too much fabric hanging out because you get all tangled up in it and get frustrated, and we don't want you to get frustrated. Then the next thing you're going to do is take the wool cloth, the Stroud cloth, and sew it on top of the muslin. That's the cloth that you're going to put the beads on. Now, normally I said, and that's true, you can only use dark navy blue or scarlet, but I'm using white. This is undyed Stroud cloth, and I'm using that today so that you can see what I'm doing. It's much easier for you to see what I'm doing against a white background than those bold colors. So you've stretched your muslin on your hoop, you've trimmed your muslin, and then you've sewn or basted down the fabric that you're going to bead on. And then you're going to flip it over. And what I did was draw this little design on the back, on the muslin in pencil. I drew it in pencil. Excuse me. And then I took thread and stitched just along this line. It's just a running stitch with teeny tiny little stitches on this side of the cloth, all the way along this line. So when you do that and you turn it over then to the front side, you see the design in thread. So that way, whatever you've used to draw your design on, whether it's chalk or pencil or permanent marker or pen or whatever it is, that never appears on the front side of your beadwork. That only appears on the back on the muslin, and you sew through it, and so you're going to use this line as a guide to do your beadwork. So we have cut our muslin and stretched it over the hoop. We've basted our Stroud cloth on top of that. We have drawn our design on the back and then stitched along that line. And then we're ready to go. All we need now is to get started. You can find my work and find more information about these how-to videos on my website, which is www.berrybeadwork.com. Thank you.